This is case study number 2, and this is actually this is probably my favorite application that I ever worked on. It's for a company called Bloodworth Marine. They repair and build large shipping vessels. They have projects located like all across the Gulf Coast and South America. Pretty big operation. When we came in with them, it was a completely paper operation. They had to wait for time and expenses information, purchase requisition forms, so just approval to get purchases, everything like that from a project. They had to wait up to 5 days or more for it to all come back from the field, and then they were manually entering it into QuickBooks, essentially. And they had no visibility into job profitability until at least 30 days after the project ended, if not more, and sometimes never. And by the time they could go into a new line of business that was making them lose a bunch of money each project they did, but they just had to sign projects, and they wouldn't know that they lost money until a few months down the line. So what we did in this application, I'll actually show you the application, is we built a QuickBase application that essentially became the central operating system for their whole business, where their workers and welders from across all around the world were entering time and expenses on a daily basis. They were entering their vehicle usage, and they're entering the work completed that they completed on a project that week or that day. Meanwhile, project managers were sitting there looking at this, and they were managing their resource pool. They're saying, okay, I can see that these 5 people are on this job, and we've had this emergency come up. So we have these people nearby that aren't working on a job today, so we can send them there. It also helped them manage project budgets because in real time they were seeing time and expenses being entered into the system and approving time and expenses. That's what I mean by T&E. Meanwhile, the executives are sitting there, like executives do, looking at utilization reports, managing P&L. I don't know what on L means. I think that's a typo. And tracking revenue and also profitability, because they could see all the components that were involved in their project profitability, which was labor, materials, and yeah, that's it, labor and materials. Oh, and mileage. And all this was then integrated with QuickBooks so we set up a little demo version. It's actually their live application, but it has all of the data obscured. So I want to make sure that you guys are clear that none of the data actually makes sense, and you're not going to see any sort of customer data or anything like that. But what you are going to see is the actual working of the application. I just switched back into QuickBase. Can you guys let me know when you can see my other screen? Okay, you guys see it? Okay. So this is Bloodworth Marine Central. If you can see this, this is a totally different looking app. You see all of the normal things that QuickBase has, right? The tables up here, the bar up here. They wanted some reports on the side here. But what you also see in this is, they wanted this whole kind of thing here, right, where they can kind of look at everything in the system, different reports, etc. So they're looking at, where are their employees at today, which was kind of a side benefit because everybody's logging their work, so they know where somebody checks in the morning, all the way through to purchases by day, back-ordered items. I'll show the purchasing approval process because I had a request by somebody prior to this to see that. All the way from that to managing stuff with HR. They're checking time and expenses. So, and they also have this report called Open Job Status. Again, I want to remind you that these numbers are all obscured and make no sense if you know their business, but they can come in here and say, okay, in real time, as people across the Gulf are entering their time and expenses and material charges, they can see estimated total costs, total earned revenue, actual invoice amount, and work in progress revenue and work in progress expenses, and get some idea of profitability in real time. This will actually, on this report, when something starts to look unprofitable, this report will start showing bright red for them, which is something they requested. So I have daily turnover sheets are pretty cool. What a daily turnover sheet for them means is that their guys in the morning log in and essentially take roll on each of their projects. these 10 guys showed up on this project this day. And that actually drives them to be able to say, like halfway through the day, they can see, okay, who's not on a project, in real time, in case they need somebody to go on something else, and then how many hours they're clocking towards that project that day. Main portions of it, which I promised to show, was purchases. So purchases in this particular application are connected to QuickBooks. So you'll actually notice the purchase order is built almost exactly like QuickBooks. That was by their request, kind of laid out the same as a purchase order in QuickBooks, at least at the time when we developed the application. But you can see their guys all across the country are coming in, and they're going to enter. They're going to put a vendor in. I have their vendor list hidden for the demo. They're going to have a sub vendor. Again, these vendor lists are all driven. They're coming up from their QuickBooks file, and they're synced with QuickBooks. And then they come in here and they essentially add line items of purchases for that purchase order. And when they're done, they save it. And what happens is, I think everything under a certain amount for them has to be approved, or above a certain amount. So their purchasing manager comes in as these are being entered and looks at the approved purchases report, which essentially shows all the purchases in the system. It looks like they have them prioritized by the amount of the PO. So they'll look at this and say, okay, these are the ones I need to approve or disapprove. And they can go ahead and dig into it and say, okay, wow, this is a pretty big purchase. What is this for? And they'll dig in here and see, okay, it's for all these parts for this ship, right? Okay, it looks like they need this, So he'll go back and then they will approve the purchase. Once they approve the purchase, the person actually goes and makes the purchase and marks that they've completed the purchase, and then it goes down into QuickBooks, in their case, as a purchase order. And that kind of ends that process. All of the same data from time and expenses, all of that actually drives to invoices that go into QuickBooks. So they actually will draw their invoices that does all the calculations in QuickBase to develop all the line items for the invoice, and then it goes down into QuickBooks and it just kind of posts it. So the whole idea is end to end. They don't do any of their sales management in here. It's pretty much all word of mouth as their sales, so they're not tracking leads or anything like that. But they're managing literally every piece of their business essentially in here in QuickBase via the cloud. And that's why it's one of my favorite applications, because these guys love it, and they're in it so much, and everybody's in it. I think they probably have over 100 users in this application now. And it's a great case study, because their biggest concern, which was actually my biggest concern, was a lot of the people that needed to use this application. Some of them, we were training them how to turn on computers, and I'm not joking. We actually trained a guy how to turn on a computer to use this application. But we were able to, through training and change management, now all of these people who are not used to the technical world have a pretty easy interface that they use to just do what they need to do on a daily basis, and they're doing it all on netbooks out in the field each day. And it's coming back to base in real time. So I love that application, and that's actually the only other application that I'm prepared to show, but it gives you two very, very different perspectives on what QuickBase can do. And it's all just custom to that business process. I'm going to go ahead and switch